Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
For centuries, the Chickahominy people have stood as a symbol of resilience, cultural pride, and deep-rooted heritage in Virginia. Though often overlooked in mainstream historical narratives, their story is one of endurance, adaptation, and perseverance amid the tides of colonialism, racial categorization, and social upheaval. Among them, a unique and compelling chapter unfolds: the history of the black-skinned Chickahominy people, an enigmatic group whose identity has been shaped by the intersection of Native American, African, and European influences. Their journey through the corridors of history speaks volumes about the complexities of race, survival, and belonging in America. To explore their past is to delve into a nuanced and intricate history that challenges conventional racial and ethnic classifications and reveals a people who have steadfastly clung to their roots despite centuries of marginalization. The Chickahominy tribe is one of the most ancient and historically significant indigenous groups in Virginia. Their name, derived from the Algonquian language, is believed to mean coarse-pounded corn people, reflecting their agricultural traditions and staple crop. Long before European settlers arrived on the shores of Virginia, the Chickahominy thrived as a powerful confederation of villages along the Chickahominy River. They maintained an elaborate system of governance, religious practices, and social organization that allowed them to sustain a stable and prosperous society. However, the arrival of English colonists in the early 17th century brought profound changes to the Chickahominy way of life. Initially, they engaged in trade and diplomacy with the newcomers, navigating the dangerous waters of colonial expansion with strategic alliances. Yet, as English settlements expanded and land encroachments intensified, the Chickahominy people found themselves under increasing pressure. They resisted, but the tide of colonization ultimately forced them into a continuous struggle for sovereignty and recognition. One of the most fascinating and least explored aspects of Chickahominy history is the presence of black-skinned individuals within their communities. To understand this phenomenon, it is essential to examine the broader historical context in which Indigenous and African identities intertwined in early America. During the 17th and 18th centuries, Virginia was a rapidly evolving frontier where Native Americans, enslaved Africans, and European settlers coexisted, often uneasily. As the English tightened their grip on the colony, many Native American groups, including the Chickahominy, found themselves caught in a web of racial classification that sought to erase their distinct identities. Simultaneously, African slavery became institutionalized, and the rigid lines of racial division hardened. Yet, the reality on the ground was far more complex. Many African people, particularly those who escaped bondage, found refuge among Native American tribes, where they were welcomed as kin rather than as property. The Chickahominy, like many other indigenous groups, integrated these newcomers into their communities through marriage, adoption, and cultural assimilation. Over generations, this blending of indigenous and African ancestry resulted in a population of black-skinned Chickahominy people who retained their tribal affiliations and cultural traditions despite external pressures to conform to European-imposed racial categories. The 19th and 20th centuries saw intensified efforts by the U.S. government and Virginia state authorities to impose rigid racial classifications that disregarded the historical fluidity of identity among indigenous peoples. The infamous Racial Integrity Act of 1924, spearheaded by eugenicist Walter Plecker, sought to eliminate the legal existence of Native Americans in Virginia by forcing them to be classified as colored. This policy disproportionately affected tribes like the Chickahominy, whose members exhibited a range of skin tones due to their mixed ancestry. Under these draconian laws, the black-skinned Chickahominy people faced a dual burden. They were stripped of their indigenous identity while simultaneously experiencing the racial discrimination directed at African Americans. Many resisted these classifications, fighting tirelessly to reclaim their rightful status as Native Americans. Others, out of necessity, lived in the liminal space between categories, forging new ways to preserve their culture despite official erasure. Despite centuries of oppression, the Chickahominy people, including their black skin members, have demonstrated remarkable resilience in preserving their traditions, language, and communal bonds. Oral histories have remained a crucial vessel for passing down knowledge of their ancestry, land, and cultural practices. Even when forced to navigate the complexities of American racial dynamics, they have maintained a steadfast connection to their indigenous roots. In recent years, greater awareness and scholarship have brought renewed attention to the legacy of African Native American relationships in Virginia. Historians, anthropologists, and tribal members alike have worked to document the stories of the black-skinned Chickahominy, ensuring that their contributions to history are recognized. Legal victories, such as federal recognition of certain Virginia tribes in 2018, have further bolstered efforts to reclaim indigenous identity in the face of historical erasure. The history of the black-skinned Chickahominy people of Virginia is one of courage, endurance, and the unyielding will to exist on their own terms. Their story challenges simplistic racial narratives and offers a more nuanced understanding of the American past, one in which identities were fluid, communities were diverse, and survival required adaptability. By acknowledging and honoring their legacy, we gain not only a deeper appreciation of the Chickahominy people, but also a broader perspective on the intricate and often overlooked histories that have shaped the United States. In a world still grappling with the legacies of racial categorization and historical amnesia, their story stands as a testament to the power of identity, memory, and the enduring spirit of indigenous resilience.